We have a major update. The Knicks continue to listen to trade offers for Jericho Sims ahead of the February 6th trade deadline. And if the Knicks look to make a move, reports indicate that Tom Thibodeau will have a major influence on who the player added to this roster is. We're going to break down all of these latest reports today. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And make sure you have notifications turned on, so anytime we drop new content, you get notified. And now, let's get started. The Knicks still taking trade calls on Jericho Sims. A few weeks ago, we reported on this channel that teams were contacting the Knicks looking to trade for Jericho Sims. And it's very easy to understand why. Sims' role on this team is non-existent. He is situational at best. And once we get fully healthy, he's not going to have a role on this team. But what's different from the reports a few weeks ago versus the current reports now is that a few weeks ago, teams were contacting the Knicks about Jericho Sims. Now, reports are indicating that the Knicks are openly and actively listening to Jericho Sims trade offers to potentially move him in a deal to get more talent on this team. Let's break down these latest reports from NBA insider Ian Begley. Ian Begley on the Knicks' potential trade discussions on Jericho Sims. According to Begley, I do think that the Knicks will continue to pick up the phone and hear teams out on Jericho Sims leading up to the trade deadline. Houston specifically, I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything other than I do know that there are some fans of Sims in that organization, and they've continued to have interest in him. Anything specific between the Rockets and the Knicks conversations, I don't have that information. I would just expect the Knicks to continue to hear out the market on Sims and see where it goes heading into the trade deadline. While we don't know all the teams interested in potentially a Jericho Sims deal, we know for certain at this point in time that at least the Houston Rockets are one team to keep an eye on in a potential Jericho Sims deal. But it may not be the only team to look at, because you got to remember, New York at this point needs more depth on their bench. Players that they will actually utilize and have some time for. If Jericho Sims is not part of that rotation and there's available offers on the table for him to move him for a significant piece, or at least another player that actually will see playing time on this roster, then I am all for making that move. And if the Knicks do end up making a trade for Jericho Sims, expect Tom Thibodeau to be heavily involved in those negotiations. Let's take a look at those reports as well, too. Shout out to Ian Begley for giving us this following information as well, too. I'm not making an excuse for Thibs here. He's involved in the decisions on who they sign. So if the Knicks have a depth problem, Thibs played a role in that problem as well, too. So it's very clear here to understand that if the Knicks go out there and they make a trade or add any talent to this roster, Tom Thibodeau will always have an impact and an influence on who that player added to this roster is. And the main reason for that is because we don't want to have another Cam Reddish situation. For anybody who remembered this Knicks team, when we got Reddish on it, a lot of people in the organization at the time were suggesting that Tom Thibodeau, and the reason he was not playing Cam Reddish is initially he was not a fan of that trade or that move, and he did not want the Knicks to pull the trigger on that deal. But unfortunately for the Knicks at that time, they did make that move, and they got Cam Reddish on this team. Thankfully, a couple of months later, they were able to flip him for Josh Hart. And now in the record books, that trade is one of the best trades in Knicks history. However, we don't want to go down another road where we're having to make another trade like that happen because we went ahead and added a player to this team that we know Tom Thibodeau will never play. I am actually happy that Thibs is part of the negotiations for any player that's going to be added to this team, because you need the head coach to have the approval of that player before they're added here. Because if you don't have that, and we know how Tom Thibodeau acts and operates with his rotations and the fact that he likes to shorten them and keep them limited, if he's not approving who you're adding to this team, then it doesn't matter who you add. They'll never see the floor. That's why Thibs being involved is no secret at all to me. Honestly, I'm just glad to get confirmation, because for the last few years, we have heard this, we've expected this, we've thought this, but we didn't know if it was the case or not until right now, until Ian Begley just confirmed that any moves the Knicks make, especially for depth on their bench, Thibodeau is heavily involved. And he also mentioned, if you're upset with the lack of depth that we have, or the players that we play or don't play, you also have to blame Tom Thibodeau for that as well, too. And I'm glad that we understand that now. That way, moving forward, whoever the Knicks add to this team, we can't say blame Leon Rose, fire Leon Rose. That can't be it, because Leon is conversing with his head coach on who to add to this roster. So if Tom Thibodeau can't get the best out of that player that they add, it is not on Leon. It is on Thibs, because clearly Thibs has influence and he's utilizing it when it comes to adding depth to this team. If the Knicks do end up trading Jericho Sims, I hope they can get another player back from him, either a center or a wing. Now, I know it's very hard to anticipate or even expect that the Knicks would be able to flip Jericho Sims for any type of impactful player. But following Leon Rose for the amount of years I have, seeing what he's been able to do with basically nothing, I have faith that if the Knicks do move on from Sims, we are going to get another impactful player on this team. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know who that player is, but I know Leon Rose and this Knicks front office will get that trade done, make sure it's impactful, and add another player to this team that actually makes sense. We don't need a guard. We don't need a shooting guard. We need a wing, a tall wing or a true center. Somebody that can play backup right alongside Karl-Anthony Towns. Or sometimes when Towns is out of the game, he can play center for Towns. We need that right now. We really don't have that besides Precious Achiuwa. But Achiuwa rather play the 4 spot than the 5 spot. So we need a true center in here. But either way, we need to add more talent to this team. We need more depth on this team. And we need more players that Tom Thibodeau will actually utilize. Right now, our starters are playing way too many minutes. And our bench, not enough. The only way to fix that is to give Thibodeau exactly what he wants. More players on the bench that he can trust. So that way, he doesn't have to burn out the starters and play them 40-plus minutes each and every night. He can play the starters 34 minutes or less. And the rest of those minutes go to the bench, like how it's supposed to be right now. All we need is for this team to make that move to add more help to this roster. And I think out of any of the players that are trade assets for the Knicks right now, the main player that is likely to be traded is Jericho Sims. Because as of right now, he's likely the player that the Knicks have no problem giving up. And he has the most value out of all the players the Knicks are comfortable giving to another team. And that's why I think it's only a matter of time before the Knicks pull the trigger and make that trade for Sims. But what about you guys? What do you think about these reports indicating that the Knicks continue to entertain trade offers for Jericho Sims? Let me know how you feel about that in the comment section below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below. And of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knick fans, take care of yourself, your families, and each other. Peace and love.